Welcome to the Poly Podcast. My name is Peter Dyke. I'm Executive Director of the Alliance for PE Pipe, and I'm delighted to bring this edition to you. It's an anthology of sorts. We've got a variety of guests with a variety of content for you today, and I'm excited that you're tuning in, whether you're listening or whether or not you're watching us on YouTube. Our first guest today is Jared Sfigera from the Municipal Utility District in Omaha, Nebraska, and he's got some crazy things to tell us about what he's learned about ductile iron pipe that's been wrapped in HDPE. Then Dan Landy, our own Dan Landy, talks about some of the things that he's learned from the engineering program in the last 3 years. Then we move on to Chris Waite from Secor. He's in the West, and Chris tells us about some of his very cool projects, sewage treatment plant manifolds that he's made, as well as some golf course work that he's been doing. Richard Colassa, one of my mentors, certainly in the industry from WL Plastics, talks about some of the messages that he has for municipal users as well as industry members to consume. Then we've got Jason Penland from McElroy Manufacturing talking about their launch of the I-Series down to some of the more accessible diameter ranges for us infusion machines. Certainly, they debuted the I-Series 3 years ago in the larger diameters, and then starting later this year, we'll start seeing that I-Series in smaller diameters. Jason's got some pretty cool things to tell us there. Alan Ambler talks to us about several different issues. He's our civil engineer. Paul Brodsky, right towards the end of this broadcast, talks about some of the fantastic things he's been doing with training, making it more accessible for all of us and your customers. So listen to what Paul Brodsky has to say. And then we finish with one of our board members, Mike Leathers, Converter. Pipeline Plastics has a lot of fantastic things going. They're selling a lot of pipe. And Mike's views of what's going on in the market for 24 could be of interest to you. I encourage you to stay tuned to the Poly Podcast here this year. We're going to produce at least one per month moving forward from this point on. Thank you for your patience as we get through developing more programming content for our various offerings here at the Alliance for PE Pipe. Without further ado, let's get to it. The first edition of 2024, the Poly Podcast. Greetings. Welcome to another edition of the Poly Podcast. My name is Peter Dyke, Executive Director of the Alliance for PE Pipe, and welcome to 2024. We are very excited today to bring the podcast to you. It was taped back in December when we had the opportunity to interview a variety of people that attended PE Showcase. My first guest today is none other than Jared Sfigera from the Metropolitan Utility District in Omaha, Nebraska. Welcome, Jared.
Thanks, Peter. Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, we're really excited that you decided to make the trip down to Dallas to attend Showcase and speak in our premier session, what we call the Advocate Panel.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited for tomorrow.
I was really fortunate to have met you in the last year, Jared, and to learn about your use of polyethylene pipe at the utility. The Alliance has done a roadshow, or did a roadshow there probably 4 years ago in Omaha, and we had sparse attendance from the utility, and quite honestly, we were told, thank you very much, but we're not interested.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah, a lot's changed since 4 years ago, honestly. Started our asset management department back in 2019, 2020 is when we really started to get a foothold and started to make a lot of changes in the way we operate. So,
well, tell us, before we get started talking too much about the utility, tell us who you are and what you do.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm Jared Sfigera. I'm the Director of Infrastructure Integrity at the utility, and that's just our kind of fancy term for asset management. So infrastructure integrity, that's what we handle is deciding kind of what our riskiest pipe cohorts are in the system, where we've got the most leaks, and kind of how we can be a little bit more proactive with our replacement to drive down our leak rate and our water main breaks.
Got it. So the utility's paying close attention to water loss.
Absolutely.
And what product is primarily in the ground today?
So our system is about 3,000 miles and primarily made up of cast and ductile iron water mains.
Got it. So primarily metallics in the system.
Yep.
And about how many water main breaks do you see in a year?
So last year we had almost 600, and as of this month we're about to that number. So we're looking to exceed 600 water main breaks this year as well.
And do you know what your water loss rate is?
We assume it's at about 10%.
Right. So you're using a lot of water. And then finally, the other metric I look at, Jared, to determine what I consider to be a healthy organization is if I know what their water loss rate is, I know how many water main breaks they have a year, and I figure out their cycle time. So on 3,000 miles, how many miles do you replace or rehab a year on the water side?
So, yeah, we recognize that we have a lot of work to do to increase that number. At the moment, we're doing about 16 to 17 miles per year, and we're looking to try to increase that rate to 25 miles of either replacement or rehabilitation by the year 2025.
Yeah, so if you got to 30, you'd be at 100-year cycle time, which AWWA tells us our target.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, you're the right man for the job. I'm delighted to hear that. Well, one of the reasons we're talking today is because you have made a commitment, Jared, to learn about polyethylene pipe. Tell us about that journey for you and the utility.
Yeah, no, it's been an interesting one, and we've gone through several iterations to finally get to this point where we feel like polyethylene pipe is our choice for replacement and for new installs as well. It's kind of funny that you mentioned you were lucky to meet me in the last year. I guess what we've been doing is maybe been a little bit under the radar for the Alliance, and then when we talked, you kind of learned, oh wow, you guys have been installing a lot of polyethylene. So. Yeah, we've gone through different iterations. Like I said, we've changed our spec for ductile iron replacement because that's just what we were used to. And then we kind of decided, why are we still installing metallic mains when we know we have corrosive soil environments, and we've been experiencing ductile iron failures on pipe that's been installed since the 1990s, early 2000s, and that's just too early to be experiencing those failures. So
30-year-old ductile. Now, was that wrapped in polyethylene?
Polyethylene wrapped
Even
ductile
with
iron.
The wrap, you were losing it at 30 years?
Absolutely, and I think what really exacerbates that is if that polywrap isn't just perfectly sealed around that water main, then you're looking at corrosion hotspots where you don't have complete coverage. So that's what we actually see more failures on the polywrap ductile iron than we do the bare.
Really?
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've always been saying about ductile iron and the good move that utilities made when they went from cast iron to ductile is with cast you would have, or at least the cast from the 1930s, you would have circular failures, which would be catastrophic. And the great thing about ductile iron is all you got to do is put a band clamp on it, right? So it's a relatively inexpensive fix. So if you had a tuberculation failure in ductile iron, what was your fix routine? Would you just put a Hymax band clamp on it?
Typically, we'll use a stainless steel repair clamp. On a corrosion failure on ductile iron. Yeah, we don't see a whole lot of those transverse style breaks on ductile iron because of the nature of the material and the failure mode. You get a lot more corrosion holes.
Sure.
And sometimes those corrosion holes will link together, and you'll get what some people would call a longitudinal failure, but it's really just kind of a bigger corrosion hole. And so in those situations, then you're left cutting out pipe.
So let me just ask one more time, Jared, so that I understand why bagged polyethylene fails quicker than unbagged in a corrosive environment. Explain that to me again.
So what we're seeing, and I'm not a corrosion expert by any means, but what we're seeing is that if that polyethylene encasement isn't completely done correctly or it gets damaged down the road, then you end up getting what we could call corrosion hotspots in that particular environment. Whereas if it's unwrapped and the corrosion's allowed to attack the pipe kind of at all points along the pipeline, then you get a lot more time before you experience a failure. So I think that's really just it's a matter of time. I think eventually all that 1960s ductile iron is going to kind of fail at the same rate. It's just got to catch up to where the bagged ductile iron is experiencing those failures faster.
Well, thank you for that explanation. You also have some experience with the Plastics Pipe Institute and Camille Rubiez. Tell us about your experience with PPI and how they were helpful in your journey.
Oh yeah, PPI has been indispensable for our design and implementation. We got a lot of with a new pipe material, you get a little bit of inexperience from our construction crews, from our designers, and they've got questions. And Camille's just always been more than helpful in fielding those questions or just pointing us to the correct resources within PPI that helps us answer those questions.
Yeah, I'd say one of his greatest works was this document, the AWWA M55, which pretty much is the Bible.
Absolutely.
We reference this every week in our counsel to your colleagues at the municipal level.
Right. We've got several hard copies of that document at the utility, plus some PDF versions, and reference it all the time.
Yeah, good for you. So why poly?
So like I mentioned, seeing kind of laying out our journey. making changes to ductile iron specifications, that not necessarily being enough to, or kind of coming to the realization, why are we still installing metallic mains? So we had a little bit of a stint with balance spigot PVC.
Okay.
Started installing that in various capacities, but a lot of just brittle material failures. If we overhome or if we over deflect that PVC, or if say we're not installing it in a straight alignment, then you got a lot of concerns and design constraints inherent to that material. Whereas polyethylene is just so much more contractor friendly, so much more installer friendly, and so much easier to design around. So a lot of the ways we're replacing water mains right now is through pipe bursting. And in that pipe bursting environment, there's just no better material that's going to take on those stresses and the design constraints of pipe bursting than polyethylene.
Are you bursting ductile or just cast?
Just cast iron, yeah, at this point.
Interesting. And what kind of service connections are you putting on that HDPE?
So at the moment, one way we really tried to ingrain polyethylene as a material is we took kind of baby steps, and so we decided that we were going to try to implement it by kind of just replacing portions of the way we were doing business before with polyethylene. So at the moment we're still using mechanical saddle connections, just because that's what our crews are comfortable with, it's what our contractors are comfortable with, but as we further ingrain that material, we're trying to fuse as much as we possibly can. So.
And are you going to copper or polyethylene on your services?
All of our services have to be copper per Omaha Plumbing Code, so we're staying with copper and with corp stops. But everything from the corp stop to the main and all the way, all the fittings and everything within our system.
Well, as you move
fused.
into this journey, Alan Ambler, our resident PE at Castleberry, Florida, for his first few years, they also used mechanical.
Okay.
And then they ended up with electrofusion. So that's a pretty common stair-step approach to the implementation of the program. Have you seen any failures with any fusions on your polyethylene since you've started the program?
Not that I am aware of. There could be other engineers that know some history, but I feel like if it's installed properly and inspected properly, that you're not going to get those failures.
Right.
And with the data logger, there's ways to monitor.
So you're using the data logger?
We are not right now, but there's talks to do so, just so we know for a fact that all of our fusions are in good shape before we put them in the ground.
Well, as you move along, if you want some help from us, we're happy to help you. We've got a program around services, and certainly McElroy's data logger data and YouTube presence is really strong. We can help you with that.
All right.
And we are going to visit Omaha for a road show this year.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So I forget what month it's going to be, but hopefully you can host us physically and we could do it at your facility. We'll bring our truck with 10,000 pounds of gear and set up and train.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Train your team.
Absolutely. They'd be
All
very
right,
receptive.
With that, I will say goodbye to Jared Svagera. So great to catch up with you here at Showcase this year, Jared. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks again. All right.
Welcome back. My next guest is Dan Landy, engineer with the Alliance for PE Pipe. Hello, Dan.
What's going on, Peter?
Hey, tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm Dan Landy, engineer with the Alliance, so really helping people with their adoption of polyethylene, whether that be the city, the utility, the municipality, but also the distributor, everyone involved in the whole cycle of working with polyethylene, the contractor, making sure everyone's kind of on board and the same page moving forward.
So we operate 13 different programs at the Alliance for PE Pipe, Dan, and you're a key member of one of them, and we call this the engineering program. Tell us a little bit about the engineering program and how it interfaces with our clients.
Yeah, so you used to make fun of me because I like the analogy that the circus comes into town and they leave when everyone becomes wise to them. But the engineering program is kind of how we ensure that we're doing the opposite. So we do have what we think is a better solution. So we want to make sure we're supporting and providing that education necessary for people to continue growing in their journey. So the roadshow program's great. The webinar program's great. Now the engineering program, we're not letting anything slip through the cracks. Opportunities we should be taking advantage of, we are taking advantage of. And it's really people knowing and being confident that they have the resources necessary. When they move towards polyethylene, people need to know that they're supported. And that's really all I'm doing. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm just providing that support to the people wanting it.
So what does a typical day look like for you?
There's not a whole lot of typical days when it comes to adopting polyethylene. It's challenging because you do have to know everything. In terms of when people need information, they're usually out on a job site. They need to get that quickly. installation questions and whether or not you can install polyethylene and how to install it is probably the most difficult. It's kind of crazy. We laugh about it, but you're installing it the exact same way, open cut for PVC and ductile iron. But if people haven't done it before, they still have a myriad of questions. They really want to make sure it get addressed before they design it.
Well, give us an example. I mean, what are some of the most common questions? I mean, somebody sends you an email. Is that how it works?
Emails, a lot of phone calls out there already in the field. We do a ton of design seminars, so typically when we are doing a seminar, we're meeting with your utility on Zoom or your engineering firm, so they kind of already have an idea of what they want to start looking at. They might have some questions down the line, but they want to know how exactly their system is going to perform, and they want to be able to prove that, more importantly. So that's kind of the space I operate in. Everyone selling it and involved in the life cycle knows it's going to do well, but if you're an engineer, they don't like you telling them it's going to do well. They like you showing them. So a lot of resources, a lot of the calculators and tools, working them through that's important.
Okay, so we do a webinar, and you get a bunch of emails afterwards. Is that how it works?
Yeah, remember, you make fun of me for all these topics you make fun of me for, but I think the webinar program is a great first date. And I know you don't like that, but on the first date, you're trying to figure out, is this for me? And if so, what's this going to look like? So after the webinar program, I like to follow up with people and say, kind of, well, how'd it go? How do you feel about it? And that's where people will bring us in on a seminar. So it's kind of the second step, whether, I went from considering it to, I like what I'm hearing. Let's see if we can actually implement this.
So are they asking you actual questions about bending radius or thermal? I mean, what do they give us? Give us a couple examples.
Yeah, there's just so many. So the biggest one's going to be your tie-ins. People are always worried about their tie-ins, and then naturally, when you're worried about your tie-ins, you're worried about, do I have to thrust block? What does that look like? What type of connection? Services, really important for the water industry. Services, and how am I going to build that out from there? People. Even if the engineering team's all on board for polyethylene, we still have to teach our field and maintenance crew. So typically, we're first working on their engineers, then we're kind of having to recircle back again with the physical roadshow program, because they want their field guys out there with their hands on the equipment, making sure that they know how to operate it.
So it's a combination, between the webinars, the road shows, the seminars. You did like 40 seminars this year, right?
Yeah.
All those things combined to generate all these leads and cases that you're working on with Alan Ambler and Paul Fieser, right?
Yeah, live tapping. Can I use flowable fill? What does that look like? Bending radius, there's chlorine resistance, other chemical resistance, sidewall fusion. Yeah,
So you're answering all these questions
all day, every day.
All right. Last question. What's in store for 24?
A lot more of the same. I think we're doing the right things. For those listening, it's a large part of this is our members, and I just really encourage people to bring us in. It's not that I know more than anybody else, but I do have the best resources in the industry. So the people I'm leaning on are member companies. I think sometimes people get reluctant to ask a single source on a really important question. But even though, the single source for someone might be me, I'm calling Stephen Boras, Doug Keller, Dusty Langston, Richard Kloss. I'm calling the industry experts and curating that information, packaging it.
So if you've got a lead, but it's time to give it to a distributor, what do you do?
So, yeah, typically we want the lead to be a little bit further downstream. We want it to be confident that it's going to go poly before we hand it over. Sales guys don't like hearing that there might be a lead in 18 months. Let's be honest. They have sales cycles, and a lot of times it's longer than 18 months. So one of the things with engineers that I really like to promote, if we're doing a virtual seminar, I like to get one of our distributors in person so they can do a live fusion demo, but also be a local point of contact for those contractors and those engineers. And the distributor benefit to sponsoring events like that and getting more involved with us is oftentimes engineers will ask for us to help qualify their contractors. So they're looking at what is necessary to make sure my contractor is well trained in polyethylene. So if you're a distributor and you're helping us build that program, oftentimes the engineer is using your recommendations for contractors, and that kind of gives you the inside track to
so we're
to getting
giving
a project.
leads to distributors
Correct.
At the right time. And sometimes you're doing a Zoom call with an engineering firm, and you're going to bring in a distributor to do a live fusion demonstration while you're on Zoom. So you didn't make the trip. You were just there on Zoom.
Yeah, it's like a lunch and learn on steroids. We don't really like to have 1 hour. 90 minutes is kind of the minimum, plus a fusion demo. So it's a little bit more than a lunch and learn. Everyone else calls them lunch and learns. I call them seminars. I think it just gives people a different frame of reference. We need 2 hours. We can't we can't come in and convince you to use polyethylene and show you fusion in 60 minutes. So
yeah,
that's why I like them.
Good point. Well, Dan Landy, this isn't the first time you've been on the program, but we'd love to have you back and I'd really love to work together with you in 24 to bring more podcasts out to the audience.
Absolutely. We've actually been offered, we've finally got our first person asking us, can I get on the podcast instead of us having to ask people. So I'm excited for some of the episodes we'll have in 24.
Who knows? We could have a HDPE all-in, and we'll be the most popular people around. Anyway, with that, Dan Landy, thank you so much. I look forward to my next podcast with you.
Can't wait.
Chris Waite, janitor from Secor, welcome.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate you inviting me on.
I just asked Chris what his title was. He said, I'm a janitor. Well, you know what, Chris? That's one of the things I love about you is we all do what it takes.
Absolutely. You got to do it every day.
We all wear different hats. Chris was, and still is, the reigning award winner at the Alliance for PE Pipe for, what'd you win the award for?
Significant contributor.
Yeah, and what does that mean?
I help you out as much as I possibly can.
Yeah, well, Chris is about to graduate as a second class of certified professionals, and he's been a big help to the Alliance over the last 3 showcases. And more importantly, though, Chris is killing it up in, Montana, northern Colorado, and I'd say western South Dakota?
Yeah, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, yeah. Idaho, Utah.
Out west.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about what you do.
So my primary function is to do outside sales. Get out, meet with clients, sell pipe, sell fittings, sell valves. But I also do field work, installations, tie-ins, about anything that I can, all the way down to the janitor duties.
Yeah, and fabricating too. I mean, you sent me some photos of some very cool fabrications that you have prepared in your shop. Tell us about a couple of those.
Yeah, so the fabrication side of things is a little tricky, so I end up doing a lot of it myself. Big manifold systems, 12 by 8s, 12 by 16s, building an entire manifold to link different ponds together for sewer locations and stuff like that, so they can move from one pond to the other and go from there.
You're actually selling manifolds that you make into sewage treatment plants.
Yes.
And how are they laid into a concrete? How are they held? How are these manifolds held in place?
So the last one I did was actually all above ground, and then they put a building over the top of it once it was complete.
So they poured concrete around it?
No, just left dirt on the floor and put a building over it to protect everything and insulate everything, and went from there.
Wow. You've also sent me some images, Chris, of a couple of your golf course jobs. Tell us about a couple of those.
Yeah, so we've done some golf course jobs. The last one we did was in North Dakota. It was a complete golf course. They had put some mixed brine water on the course and killed all the vegetation. And a super nice investor came in and invested and redid the entire irrigation system on the entire golf course.
And did he use PVC?
No, he used all HDPE, 100%.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way golf courses are going these days, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, to polyethylene. So what's the largest diameter you'll see on a golf course? Is it 10 inch or is it?
This last one we actually did up to 12 inch.
Really?
But it's not. I don't have as much golf course experience. I've sold and been on a project down in Nebraska where they actually went up to 14 and 16 inch.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of advice would you have for fellow salespeople that are working, say, in the West or in areas that really aren't all that densely populated? You know, what's the key to success for polyethylene?
Pound the pavement, make relationships, and ultimately be true to the product and what the product is capable of. There's too many products out there that will give a bad name to another product. Stand up for your product and show it as it is and what the actual benefits of that product are. And people will eventually bite.
So one of the things I mentioned earlier is that you're about to be a graduate of the Certified Professionals Program. Tell us a little bit about that program and how it's benefited you over the last couple of years.
This program has been great. It is really educational first off, but it's taught me a lot of things that I didn't know on some of the engineering aspects, the different installation methods that I don't see every day. We sell pipe into it every day, but we don't necessarily see the installation of it. Now with this program, I've learned so much more about it with the help of you and Alan Ambler, Dan Landy, and all of you guys putting your presentations together. It's really helped a lot to make sure that we can learn in a controlled environment and go through everything to expand our knowledge and talk intelligently to clients without having to pick up the phone and call somebody to get an answer every time. The worst answer you can give somebody all the time is, I'll have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, and then forget to get back.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we try to get back to you quickly. Have you used our engineers as part of helping sell your jobs or helping do a better job, making a poly go better versus not? I mean,
absolutely. I've contacted Dan. I've had him help have him get some specs written for some of the different municipalities. The biggest one that I did is the hometown that I live in. Working with you guys, we got the city to rewrite their entire spec on polyethylene because they had a spec that was probably 25 years old. Goes down to the size matching and ID matching and all of that, and we've squabushed all of that where nothing is there anymore, so they can compete size on size with our competitors' markets.
Yeah, so you're bringing poly specs to some of your customers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very cool. Well, Chris Waite, always great to catch up with you, and I just want to say thank you again for your support of the industry and the Certified Professionals Program and being an ambassador for the industry. You know, we need more knowledgeable people like you out there doing the job.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And if you got a chance, get in the Certified Professionals Program.
Good. Thanks, Chris. Have a great show.
Thank you.
All right. Our next guest is Richard Kalasa. Actually, Richard, you're a sponsor of the podcast, so thank you very much.
I am. Yes, thank you.
Richard Kalasa is a technical design engineer. What's your title?
Technical sales manager.
Technical sales manager with?
WL Plastics.
Fantastic. Owned by INEOS, a very supportive member of the Alliance and the Alliance's showcase, as well as the Alliance's podcast program. And most importantly, Richard's been traveling with the Alliance for a decade now.
Yeah, a little over, yeah.
Yeah, and we've learned a lot together, I would say, Richard, over the years.
Yeah.
Probably what is one of the most significant things you've learned in your time trying to move the needle in the municipal water market?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, Peter, and this is a shout out to you, is the fact that we've educated so many municipal leaders and engineers that they now know about our product and they know how to design with it. And I just think it's just been such an advancement. To get people to change out of ways that they've been working with for years and years is also difficult, but we're finding that they're starting to realize that polyethylene pipe in the water and sewer markets of the municipalities is a definite benefit. So I think that's the biggest advancement. I mean, we started out kind of wondering, wow, this is absolutely massive, but we're starting to pick away at that pie and really make an impact on our industry.
As Dan Landy said in the previous segment, Richard, probably the biggest audience for the Poly podcast is industry members themselves, which, you know, you've got to try, when you're us, you've got to try to find a way to reach everybody in the way they want to learn or the way they want to listen. What one message would you want to share with the distributor community and some of the younger members of the industry as they work to influence people to use the product more or educate them on their products? What would your advice be?
First and foremost, attend the showcase. Second piece of advice is get involved with the PE Alliance through the education program. Not only, even if you're not presenting, but you're going to learn a lot. And you're not only going to learn a lot from our industry going forward to the municipalities, but you're going to learn everything integrated back from the municipalities as well. And so with that education, people understand who and what we are and what we can do for society and life in terms of water and sewer markets, especially leakage elimination. So it's huge. I think the PE Alliance has done such an excellent job in terms of making sure that message has been put out there, and the efforts are starting to show.
Well, I was pretty impressed. Earlier today, we had a segment on the 9 major markets of polyethylene that we've developed over time, and that room, Richard, was absolutely full.
Yeah, well, because they're interested. They want to know what those markets are. I mean, 10 years ago when we started this endeavor, we had, 10, 15 people that would show up at an Alliance event. But now we have the showcase that started, and it started off, I don't know, you can quote me, maybe 100 people showed up to the first one. Now you got just about 300 people here. And because they are training their younger staff, the older people now have support, and we are now dividing and conquering, and it's just excellent.
Yeah. All right. So your message is, hey, get involved. That's your message to the industry. To a lesser extent, we do have some municipal staff and civil engineers that listen. What would your message be to them after a decade of this learning process?
Well, I think one of the most important things, Peter, is just try to understand this option. Take the effort to understand what we have in place in terms of our specifications, in terms of our quality, and what we can do to benefit your municipality. Make the effort. And if you think that there's value, then absolutely start sharing it with your entire groups and maybe even spread the word to other municipalities, because it's a good thing. And it's a good thing from a lot of situations where you're going to save money, you're going to be able to do more with less, and you're absolutely going to be able to improve the water quality and the sewer return issues that we're having today.
You and WL and Rusty Reeves and Corin Main have been instrumental in our ASCE webinar program. Richard, we had 1,300 people signed up for one of our webinars this year. Now, we only had 800 of them show up, but typically our yield is 50 to 60%.
Right.
But honestly, 1,300 people signed up for a webinar in HDPE.
Here's another shout out to you, Peter. Just looking at that opportunity where they have the ability to say, hey, we're going to do 4 seminars with that ASCE group, and their webinars, and as it's grown, even the ASCE group itself is saying what a benefit it is to them. The attendance that we see, even though there's that 70% that show up, they stay there for that whole hour or 2 hours, whatever is allocated, because of the interesting topics that we have to present. And the people that we have involved with it, again, involvement is really, really important to make sure that message is clear and concise.
All right, one final thing, Richard, and thank you for your kind words. Is what's going on in the pipe market? Are pipe prices coming down? What are deliveries looking like? And what do things look like for a company that makes pipe in 2024? Give us a view.
Yeah, okay. Well, our view is right now that it's fairly flat right now, and being in the holiday season, it's there's a little bit of a downturn coming into Christmas season. But in 2024, we're expecting it to be a little bit the same as the last quarter of 2023. We're hoping that some of the money that Biden administration put out for infrastructure repair will start to filter into 2024, and we'll see some added budget opportunities for municipalities, so maybe that will create a little spike as well. So right now it's pretty flat. We don't see a decrease in it. Hopefully there's no decrease, but it's still a very strong economy for pipe manufacturing. We're not desperate for making pipe. But our turnaround times are very, very good, anywhere from 1 week to 6 weeks, depending on the sizes. But it's fairly reasonable to meet the demands of the municipal market.
And you just got me thinking about one additional thing. What are you seeing in terms of larger diameter, Richard? Are you seeing a growing market in the larger diameter segment?
Oh, you bet. Because one of the key issues that we're having is water in our world, and water availability. So the older infrastructure that's in place to transfer water is becoming critical, because there's losses and there's leaks. And so those bigger lines are definitely a high need right now.
Nice.
And it's a good thing. Yeah, it's really good, because now you're contained and you have clean and you don't have leaks, so it'll be a great way to distribute in the future.
Well done. Always great to catch up with you, Richard Kolasa. Richard Kolasa from WL Plastics. Thank you again for a great interview.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, welcome to Paul Brodsky from McElroy University down in Tulsa. Hello, Paul.
Hi, Peter. How are you?
I'm fantastic, and
Good.
I'm excited to confer upon you at this showcase the coveted title of Certified Professional.
That's right. I mean, if I was here for no other reason, it's just for that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'm excited.
we make fun about it, but
it's been a great program, a great 2 years. I've been excited to be a part of it, and honestly excited to continue on supporting the program as it moves forward. So.
Yeah. Well, it was the brainchild of your colleague Dave Hughes, and the fact that we actually pulled it off, and people are actually graduating. You with the masters, and others with the 1-year program, is really exciting. And we've learned a lot on how to deliver this information. Mm-hmm. Certainly, you guys have helped us be better educators, but you've been a crucial part. You came up with that idea to let us come down to Tulsa and just play with machines all day long, and that is really what has helped people understand how to operate machinery and better understand your products.
Well, that's something we always say with training. You can understand theory, you can talk about it, but to actually get hands-on, going through the process, it brings it all together and shows people how easy it is and how much fun it can be too.
Well, Paul, I wanted to talk today about inspection. I know you're head of McElroy University, and I know you have this program of inspection, and I've been with Alan Ambler. I've been working on trying to develop a better presentation of our inspection catalog of information, if you will. Tell us about McElroy University's approach to inspection and how it works for your channel partners as well as civil engineers and municipalities.
Sure. So I'll give you just a little backstory. So, of course, McElroy University, training arm of McElroy Manufacturing, been under that brand since 1981. Most of our training, of course, started out with how to operate the machine, how to maintain the machine. And then after a number of years, we created a qualified inspector training program. So those are specifically for those people that are inspectors on the job site, where they're not necessarily the ones operating it, but they need to have that deeper understanding of whatever the standard is, as well as the process of the machine, so that when they're out on the job site, they can be making proper and fair evaluations as to whether or not the job's going well, if the operator is doing what they need to do, and if nothing else, if they have an issue with something, they need to have that deeper knowledge to know how to back it up. So we had developed a inspector qualification program that originally was a 4-day in-person class. Did well. Always had students.
I took that one. That's where I learned it.
It's a great class, always very popular. But a couple of years ago, we moved the entire class to an online-only presentation. So there's still a test. You still have to go through all the same thing. It's not a short course. It's 14 hours to complete in total. You don't have to sit there for 14 hours. But the online also allows us to go deeper into topics that we didn't before. So we not only talk about the fusion process, but we talk about things like using testing tools and even tests that we don't necessarily do ourselves, like hydrostatic testing, pneumatic testing. And so the idea is that coming out of it, the inspector really has a broad understanding of the equipment, how it's supposed to work, what the process is supposed to look like, understanding how to understand what a standard is and how to follow it and whatnot. So it's been a fantastic program, and going online has allowed us to reach a lot more people that couldn't make the trip, it was a long time out of the field or whatever. So
I mean, I get it, but I kind of don't get it, Paul, because I always thought that if you were going to be a good inspector, you had to know fusion. But if you're not doing anything live with them, you're not teaching them fusion. Help me understand that.
Yeah, so that was one of the things that we learned, that now most of the time, most of the people taking it already have some experience in fusion. So the general rule is we strongly recommend that they have fused pipe before. We make that available, they can still come and do that. But if they don't, one of the great things about it is that it's really about a process. And one of the ways I equate it is think about athletic coaches. There are a lot of them that you can be a great coach, but not necessarily have that much time on the field. But if you understand the theory and you understand what's supposed to happen, then you can coach and lead those people that do understand that proper execution.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's kind of how it works, is that, and again, it's probably not recommended for somebody who's never ever seen it before to start there, but if you understand the process, and the way our tests work is they're still we refer to it as a hands-on test, but they're watching video of operators, and so they have to know enough to watch somebody fusing pipe and then be able to answer questions about what they did right or wrong or whatever. So still pretty much the same experience. We just found we didn't require that actual get on the machine.
It's fantastic. How does somebody get a hold of Paul Brodsky or McElroy University?
So you can always reach out to me, just pbrodsky@mcelroy.com, or just go to mcelroy.com/university. We'll take you to the McElroy University homepage, or just call McElroy and ask for the training guy, and it'll get to me eventually.
Fantastic. Always great to catch up with you, Paul Brodsky. Thanks for coming on the Poly Podcast.
Yep, thanks, Peter.
All right, welcome back to the podcast. My next guest is Jason Penland, Sales Channel Manager at McElroy Manufacturing down in Tulsa. Welcome, Jason.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for having me.
It's always great to be with you, Jason, and your friends at McElroy. You know, I had so much fun last month down at Infusion. You guys really kill it with that program.
Well, we look forward to hosting everyone from the industry all year long and put a lot of time and effort into it. So I'm glad you had a good time, and it was great to catch up with all our partners and industry partners and see everyone in one place for the week.
Yeah, well, it wasn't exactly just a party, Jason. You guys threw a wonderful week-long series of programs, but importantly, you brought some new products to market.
Absolutely. One of the highlights of Infusion every single year is the big reveal. 2020, we released our I-Series platform, and we released that in the Trackstar 630i, Trackstar 930i, and the Trackstar 1200i. And so this year, after a long wait of people asking when it would be released, we came out with our medium platform for the I-Series and released our 412i and our 618i.
All right, so now we have an I-Series for 4 inches and 6 inches and up, because before you stopped at 12 was the max? Was the low end of the mediums?
The 630, so our low end would have been the 6-inch to the 30-inch.
Yeah, but that's a big machine, though.
Right.
So, and those are all tracked?
Those are, so on the I-Series, on the 630i and the 900i, 1200i, those are all tracked units. So the medium platform also has rolling units that are part of that platform.
Okay. So to the people that don't really know, I mean, everybody knows McElroy makes great machines, right? But when you say I-Series, what does that mean to the market? How long have they been out, and what's the market acceptance been like?
The market acceptance has been fantastic on our large diameter I-Series. So what that means is we are building the same rugged machines. They're just a little bit more sophisticated, and they increase productivity. So what we're able to do is now operating from the data logger, that's now what we use to operate the machines.
Right,
it
so
allows
this data logger.
Yeah, this data logger right here.
Is the same one?
Mm-hmm, same data logger. And what it allows us to do is have guided workflow. So it makes the operation of the machine easier, and it's using technology to guide the operator through the fusion process. Ultimately, there's less mistakes and more productivity because the operator can focus on other things on the job site as well as the fusion process.
Well, one of the things I loved about talking to Mike Pacheco over the years, Jason, is, you know, when he's taught me about the data logger, I was like, what a fantastic tool. I mean, I can talk directly to specifiers about the importance of a product like this. But Mike's like, well, Peter, you don't really get it. It's not just that. It's this workflow thing, and now you've incorporated that into the operation of a machine.
Right.
Not just the reporting on the machine.
Yes, now we're using that same data logger to actually operate the machine, but we're also using the quality assurance tool that is the data logger to capture the times, temperatures, and pressures used throughout the fusion process. And ultimately, it's telling us if we input the pipe size and DR, it's telling us based on what fusion standard we're using how to fuse the pipe. And now with the I-Series, it's walking us through the fusion process. And then a lot of cases, when people use level 3, it's automating the fusion process to make sure that it's done absolutely correctly.
Right. So does this mean you train people more or less on your machines? I mean, what does that mean?
Same amount of training. Training is what McElroy leads with. We want to make sure that there's no questions that pipe that's going in the ground, that's known for being durable and a lifetime piping system, will be that because it's fused properly by an operator that knows how to use the machine.
Wow. So with the new I-Series, let's say, like you introduced the larger diameter I-Series a couple years ago.
2020.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, okay, so 3 years ago.
Yep.
And now you've introduced it on the lower end, so you've got the small and medium diameter. Are those shipping yet? And if not, when will they be shipping?
They're not shipping yet. Those will probably start shipping about middle of 2024, sorry. So we're expecting to start shipping those out the door in June.
Okay. And is the market responding? Are they placing orders for these?
Absolutely. Just like the large diameter I series, we've seen great response. And so I think the increased productivity and the advantages that people saw with the large diameter I series, it's a no-brainer now that they're also adopting the medium diameter I series.
Right. Well, that's fantastic news. I'm glad to hear you're having success with it, but I'm really glad also, selfishly, Jason, because that means the people that I'm talking to are going to have even greater confidence in those fusion joints.
Absolutely, and that's the end goal. I mean, the PE Alliance spreads the word about the advantages of PE pipe. Our machine's rugged, it's sophisticated, and we look at our productivity as top notch. And so we want to make sure that no variables are there. That when this pipe goes in the ground, that it is truly a lifetime piping system based on our machine being as the high standard that it is, and also that the operators fully know how to operate the machine.
Well, before you go, Jason, you talk a lot about the importance of the data logger. Well, now you've got a lot of years of data logger data.
Mm-hmm.
What is this data telling you? Are we making good joints? Are we making bad joints? What % do we cut out? I mean, what have we learned?
Well, we've learned two things. We've learned that we have trained our partners and McElroy together have gone shoulder to shoulder in training the industry on how to fuse pipe the right way. We're also seeing that people are using the data logger more than ever. The quality assurance tool that shows that the pipe's been fused the correct way has taken over in the industry, and that we're seeing more fusion joints on a monthly basis than we've ever seen before.
Do you have actual data on how many times it gets cut out or how many times joints are flagged?
I'm sure I don't look at that on a monthly basis, but I'm sure we have access to that.
Yeah, interesting. Well, I would think the only people that are using data loggers are people who know what the heck they're doing.
Right. Yeah.
But that's helpful.
Right.
I mean, when you're consulting civil, you want to know that people know what they're doing, and what better way than to look at the data logger reports?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, Jason, please come back to the podcast. We love talking to you and learning about what's going on at McElroy, and congratulations on the next I-Series introduction here that's going to happen in 2024.
Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it.
All right. This guest is my good friend Sean Tully from the other side of the river in Philadelphia. Sean, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, Peter.
Yeah, great to connect with you. And I did want to say thank you to all our listeners, directly to Sean for sponsoring PE Showcase. Sean is hosting the plenary lunch tomorrow where we have everybody together, the only time all week long. Thank
Very
you, Sean.
exciting. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So Showcase is an important event for us. It's our chance to get in front of the industry and educate the industry on all this stuff that we learn all the time. And one of the things I've enjoyed, Sean, is learning more about your products and understanding that they fit in not only at the small diameter, Sean, but even in the bigger diameters.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, at Harco, we make parts from the smallest of size, from the service lines for waterworks, all the way up to 63-inch in HDPE. And so while we found a very strong home, 24-inch and up to the 63-inch market, it's a great supplement. Many of our customers, we're sort of in a paradigm shift right now in the industry where many of our customers have become very capable at making certain parts themselves. And so what we've had to do is find a way to continue to serve those customers and fit in with them and supplement what they're already doing themselves.
So what does that mean?
That means that basically if they have the capabilities to make parts in the 16-inch, 18-inch, 12-inch range, we have to fill in for them and be a good partner to them in the larger diameter stuff when they have the opportunity to compete for projects in the larger space. So what we're making is elbows, tees, bends, custom spools, manifolds for all types of projects, whether it's a fish farm, whether it's a clean space, a data center, inside the fence, in plants, in mining, in landfill. There's a lot of different opportunities that different customers are chasing right now, and we have to find a way to supplement what they can do themselves very effectively.
And you're finding good success in that space.
We are. With some of our key customers, we've come into good stride and been able to work well with them as a team and supplement with some of the parts that we can do in a plant that they're doing sort of on the side.
So take a data center, Sean. Are you doing spools for underground installation, or are you inside the building? Are you outside? Is it site work? What is it?
We're part of both. We're part of the site work, but with some of the large data centers, we're also inside there where they're putting in dual containment pipe, and we can do some of that work for them. And basically what Harco does is we're just the fitting, so we turn pipe. And so while we don't manufacture or sell any pipe, we have to work closely with the pipe companies. A lot of these jobs are specified to where they want the fittings made from the same material as the pipe, and so we have to work closely with the other manufacturers on those jobs. And we pretty much have the capabilities to do within our shop anything that can be done with HDPE. Whether we do it commercially or not, it depends on the project. But for the right customer, we can pretty much do anything that's needed.
Fascinating. I love learning more about your stuff. As a final thought, what is it, I would say in the distributor community, Sean, that you wish they knew about your products, or you wish they knew to be better customers or better orderers or better users of your products?
That's a great question. I appreciate you asking. I find that the way that customers become great customers is they start working with our inside team. And one thing that we have at Harco that I don't find in a lot of the other manufacturers, but I think that all of them at some degree do this, is we have a customer service department that can certainly take an order from you if you give them exactly what you need. But we also have an inside sales team that's very sophisticated and can be technical with all of our customers, and sit there and they'll work through a project from start to finish. We have some projects that last 2 years on the drawing board before we're ever making fittings. And that's something that a lot of manufacturers might be turned off on. There's no sale, but we're spending capital and time trying to develop that project with a distributor to bring it out. And we're willing to do that. We have a technical sales team, which are PEs and engineers, and then we have our inside sales team, which simply will help you build, develop, and draw the parts and pictures and get them back to your engineers and your customers so that you effectively can bring that project forward into fruition, thus speccing you in and us in along the way, and therefore ensuring that we win together.
Got it. Well said. Well, Sean, always great to catch up with Sean Tully, and thank you for coming on the podcast, and I look forward to next time.
Thanks very much for having us as part of the PA Alliance.
You bet.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sean Tully. All right, Peter Dyke back here with my good friend Mike Leathers, who actually serves on the Alliance's board of directors. Welcome back, Mike Leathers, Pipeline Plastics.
Thank you. Brand new to the board and excited about it.
Yeah. Well, you've been on the podcast before, though. So I got a couple things I want to ask you about today, Mike. I'm interested in what the converter's attitude is about what 2024 looks like. I think 2023 is a pretty darn good year. How does 24 look?
Yeah, 23 was a great year, coming off of 22, which was also good. 24 could be an interesting year. We're kind of projecting it to be up and down, maybe flat overall. We think that the housing is going to continue to pick up now that people have settled in on interest rates and understand. And so we think there'll be continued uptick there, which could affect polyethylene going into the new subdivisions. It could also help us with gas distribution, polyethylene as well. And then we continue to see the oil and gas uptick. So overall, for all of polyethylene as a converter, I think we're going to see increases, and also in some increases in mining and some things of that nature. The election year is the big unknown, and if there'll be any reaction to the election financially, sometimes that can put a little bit of damper on funding. But I think there is some pent-up demand this year, and I think we'll come out pretty strong, maybe taper off towards the end with the uncertainty of the election. And so overall, I'd say probably flat as far as volumes.
That's a long way to get around to flat.
Yeah, sorry.
One of the things I've been really excited to talk about at the Alliance, Mike, is our ability to make larger diameter pipe, and you guys make up to 64-inch, I think?
Yeah, 65-inch machine, yes, sir.
65-inch. What have you seen with your demand in the larger diameters?
Yeah, so that's pretty exciting. We're seeing more and more demand there. We just finished a big job that was 63-inch in Salt Lake, and we're seeing some major water distribution. Some engineering is starting to really understand that, hey, we've been using this, we're familiar with it, we understand it, and we'd like to look and see what we can do on larger diameters and even some higher pressures. So we, as a converter, are looking to increase our large diameter presence. I think it's also helping that the fusion equipment and even the
contractors are becoming more familiar and can do things in bigger diameter. We're excited about it.
Well, we did 3 webinars this year, Mike, on larger diameter presentations, and I think we averaged over 400 people per large
great.
diameter session. Stephen Boros, your colleague at Pipeline Plastics, figured prominently in those, as did Mike James from ISCO. They're 2 of the best minds in larger diameter, certainly, so that's why we've had them on the podcast.
After you and me. Yeah.
Of course. But if that's any indication, Mike, of the acceptance or the interest in the larger diameters, I'd say that's a pretty good indicator for you.
Agreed. And when you listen to their presentations, you start to think that 65 inch isn't even that large diameter.
Yeah.
Because they continue to talk about all these even bigger 78s, 102s, 120s all over the world.
Canal enclosures. Think about that.
It's
we're
exciting.
actually enclosing canals. Probably the question I wanted to ask you most of all, Mike, was, people ask me all the time, hey, all that demand we got when the PVC people couldn't deliver, we still getting it? And, I think so. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it was a great opportunity for us as an industry. We got a lot of people that were first-time users, and I think you're seeing more and more of these municipalities, whether it's their installations or their maintenance crews, have now become familiar, actually like it, and have maybe invested or bought some equipment as far as fusing. And I think we'll continue to see that penetration into this market. So I think they gave us a great opportunity. I think their prices have come back down in PVC. So maybe it's a little bit more competitive, where for a while it was not only an availability thing, but it was a competitive cost standpoint. Sure. Now they will understand that zero leakage can actually save you quite a bit of money, and so even if the net prices are somewhat similar, the long-term benefits are huge for HDPE and no leaks.
Could you explain to us, Mike, a little bit about the recent legislation that was passed here in Texas and what that might mean for the polyethylene market?
Yeah, so it's pretty exciting stuff. We've been doing a lot of studies and trying to see how that funding is going to come through. There's $550 billion, I think, earmarked for it. We've seen about $17 billion come through on the water side. In general, all the predictions and forecasts we're seeing is that they think this money is going to be about 18% devoted to pipes and pipelines. And so we like that. Those monies are getting approved. They're getting put into the state revolving funds, as you know. And so then you go into the EPAs and the state funding, and then that gets funded into the state. It's basically a 5-year allocation, but then we expect that impact to last over the next 10 years. So it's about a 4 times is what we're seeing as far as an effect on funding at the state levels.
That's not insignificant.
No, not at all.
Yeah, that could keep a couple plants busy.
Sure.
Yeah.
That and the local props have been really, really encouraging.
Yeah. Well, with that, I want to say thank you to Mike Leathers for coming back on the podcast and telling us about his perspective. And Mike, nothing but the best in 2024.
Yeah, let's hope. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you for listening to the Poly Podcast. And with that, I am Peter Dyke, the Alliance for PE Pipe, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.